Hello and welcome back to Fluentio Learn English, the place where we train your brain to learn smarter, not harder. Today's topic is something almost every student struggles with but rarely talks about. Why studying feels harder than ever, even when you're really trying. You sit down to study. Book open. Notes ready. You tell yourself, okay, this time I'm really going to focus. 5 minutes later, your phone is in your hand. You don't even remember picking it up. One notification turns into a quick scroll. One short video turns into 5. Then suddenly you feel guilty, put the phone down, and try again. You read the same sentence once. Twice. 3 times. Nothing sticks. Your brain feels foggy. Heavy. Tired, even though you haven't really done anything yet. And that's the frustrating part, right? You're trying. You want to focus. You care about your goals. You're not avoiding your work on purpose. But somehow, studying feels harder than it used to. Harder than it should be. So you start asking yourself questions you don't like. Why does studying feel so heavy now? Why can I scroll for hours but can't study for even 20 minutes? Am I just getting lazier? Why can other people do it, but I can't? Let's pause right there, because this is important. You are not lazy. You are not broken. And you are definitely not alone in feeling this way. The real reason studying feels harder today isn't because you've become worse at learning. It's because the world around you has changed, and your brain is trying to keep up. You're living in a time of constant notifications, endless content, pressure, comparison, and mental noise. Your brain is processing more information in one day than people used to process in a week. So if studying feels heavier than before, it's not a personal failure. It's a sign that your brain is overwhelmed, and once you understand that, everything starts to make a lot more sense. Your brain is overloaded, digital overstimulation. Let's talk about what your brain is going through every single day. From the moment you wake up, your mind is flooded with stimulation. Short videos. Notifications. Messages. Music. News. Tabs open. App switching. Constant scrolling. Constant input. No real pause. Your brain rarely gets silence anymore. Every swipe gives you something new. Every scroll brings a new face, a new joke, a new drama, a new piece of information. It's fast. It's colorful. It's unpredictable. And your brain loves that, because it releases a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is your brain's reward signal. It's what makes things feel interesting, exciting, or worth paying attention to. Here's the problem. Short videos equals quick dopamine notifications equals quick dopamine scrolling equals quick dopamine. But studying? Studying is slow dopamine. You read one page, and maybe feel a tiny sense of progress. You solve one problem, and the reward is delayed. You study for 30 minutes, and the payoff might come weeks later in an exam. Your brain, which has been trained all day for fast rewards, suddenly has to switch to something that feels slow, quiet, and effortful. So what happens? It whispers, "This is boring. Let's do something else." Not because studying is actually boring. Not because you hate learning. But because your brain has gotten used to speed. When everything else in your life moves at high speed, fast entertainment, fast answers, fast reactions, deep focus starts to feel uncomfortable. Almost like withdrawal. That's why sitting with a textbook can feel mentally painful, while watching random videos feels effortless. And this is the part you need to hear. Your brain isn't broken. It's just trained for stimulation, not concentration. The good news: anything the brain learns, it can relearn. But first, you have to understand what you're up against. Attention span is shrinking, and it's not your fault. There was a time when focusing didn't require strategy. It just happened. You'd sit down with your work, and unless someone physically interrupted you, your attention stayed there. Distractions existed, of course, but they weren't living in your pocket, buzzing every few minutes. Now, your phone is within reach almost 24/7. Even when it's silent, it's mentally loud. A small part of your brain is always wondering, did I get a message? A like? Something new? This changes everything. Focus is no longer the default state of the brain. Focus is now a skill, and most of us were never taught how to train it. The real damage doesn't come from big distractions. It comes from tiny ones. The ones that feel harmless. Just one notification. Let me quickly check this. One short video, then I'll study. Each time you shift your attention, your brain has to unload what it was holding and reload it again when you come back. That process costs mental energy. It's like trying to read a book while someone keeps turning the lights off and on. You can still read, but it takes way more effort, and you get tired much faster. And here's something most people don't realize. After a distraction, your brain doesn't instantly return to deep focus. It can take several minutes to fully re-immerse in what you were doing. If you get distracted every 5 to 10 minutes, you might never reach deep concentration at all. So by the end of a study session, you feel exhausted, but also feel like you barely made progress. That's incredibly discouraging. You start blaming yourself. You think you lack discipline. You think your attention span is bad. But the truth is much simpler, and much kinder. You're not bad at focusing. You're just constantly interrupted. And no brain, no matter how smart or motivated, can perform well in an environment that's designed to break its attention every few minutes. Mental fatigue is higher than ever. By the time you sit down to study, your brain often isn't fresh. It's already tired. Not from physical work, but from constant mental activity. From the moment you wake up, your mind starts processing information. Messages. Updates. Emails. Videos. Conversations. Background noise. Opinions. News. Deadlines. Expectations. Your brain is always on, always reacting, always absorbing. Even when you're not doing something important, your mind is still busy. Then there's social comparison. Every day, you see other people's achievements, routines, productivity tips, success stories. Even if you don't consciously think about it, your brain is quietly measuring, evaluating, and sometimes worrying, am I doing enough? Add new stress to that, constant updates about problems, crises, and uncertainty. Your nervous system doesn't fully relax when it's repeatedly exposed to stressful information. On top of all this comes school or work pressure. Deadlines. Exams. Responsibilities. Things you can't ignore, even when you're off. And here's something most people overlook: decision fatigue. Every single day, you make thousands of tiny decisions. What should I wear? What should I eat? Should I reply now or later? Which task do I start with? Should I watch this or that? Do I study now or after one more video? Each decision drains a little bit of mental energy. By the evening, when many people finally try to study, that energy is already low. So when you open your book and feel instantly tired, it's not because you're incapable. It's because your brain has been running a marathon all day without real recovery. And here's the part that hurts, even your rest time often isn't true rest. Scrolling feels like a break, but it keeps your brain stimulated, comparing, reacting, and processing. Your mind never fully powers down. So the truth is simple, and powerful. You're trying to study with a brain that never truly gets to recharge. Of course it feels harder. Anyone in that state would struggle. Studying style hasn't evolved, but life has. Here's something no one really talks about. The way we're told to study hasn't changed much, but our brains and environments have changed a lot. Most traditional study advice sounds like this. Just sit and study for a few hours. Be disciplined. Push through the discomfort. Don't be lazy. That advice might have worked better in a time with fewer distractions, less mental overload, and slower-paced lives. But today, that approach often backfires. Your attention endurance is lower than it used to be, not because you're weaker, but because your brain is used to faster stimulation and more frequent switching. Your mental load is also higher. You're carrying more information, more decisions, more stress, more digital noise than students did even 10 to 15 years ago. So when you try to force yourself to study the old way, long, intense sessions with pure willpower, it feels like trying to run a marathon without training. You burn out fast. You get frustrated. You blame yourself. But the problem isn't effort. The problem is that the method doesn't match the modern brain. Today, studying works better when it's designed around how your brain actually functions now. That means shorter focus sessions instead of endless hours. Working in blocks your brain can handle, then stopping before you're completely drained. It means taking real breaks, not scrolling breaks, but moments where your mind actually slows down. It means using active learning instead of passive reading. Testing yourself. Explaining out loud. Writing summaries. Engaging your brain, not just staring at pages. And most importantly, it means building distraction control systems, like putting your phone away, using website blockers, or creating a study space that protects your attention instead of constantly attacking it. Because here's the truth. You don't need more willpower. You need smarter systems. When your environment and method support your brain, studying stops feeling like a constant fight, and starts feeling possible again. Conclusion: you're not lazy, you're living in a harder world. If studying has been feeling harder lately, I want you to take a deep breath and hear this clearly. You are not stupid. You are not lazy. And you are not failing at life. Your brain is doing exactly what human brains do, it's adapting to the environment around it. The only problem is that the modern world is louder, faster, and more demanding than ever before. You're trying to focus in a world designed to distract you. You're trying to think deeply in a world built for speed. You're trying to learn in an environment that constantly pulls your attention away. Of course it feels harder. But here's the important shift: if studying is harder today, that doesn't mean you should be harsher with yourself. It means you need to be kinder and smarter with how you approach it. Instead of forcing yourself to focus for hours, start by building focus slowly. 10 good minutes of real concentration is more powerful than 1 hour of distracted studying. Your attention span can grow, just like a muscle, but it grows with training, not punishment. Instead of trying to remove every distraction overnight, reduce them gradually. Put your phone a little farther away. Turn off a few notifications. Study in a slightly quieter place. Small environmental changes can make a big difference. And most importantly, use study techniques that actually match today's brain. Short sessions. Clear goals. Active learning. Real breaks. Systems that support you instead of relying only on motivation. Because motivation comes and goes. Energy goes up and down. But good systems stay. So the next time studying feels hard, don't jump to, "What's wrong with me?" Ask a better question: what in my environment is making this harder than it needs to be? That question leads to solutions instead of self-blame. Remember this. The problem isn't your effort. The problem is the environment. And once you understand that, you can finally work with your brain instead of against it. And that's when studying starts to feel possible again.